guys, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I have an unhaul. So I'm posting this, I'm pretty sure, like on the first day of spring, and it just felt obvious to me that I needed to do a spring cleaning unhaul. I haven't unhauled books in a few months now, and there are definitely some books here that I read last year, or even before that, that I'm just like, I don't really need anymore. So I do actually have 57 books here to show you, and I will be selling almost all of these. I will tell you the couple that I'm not selling. I'm going to be selling almost all of these on Depop. That is where I sell my used books, just so I get a little bit of money back to buy books. Because I am doing an unhaul video and then posting these on Depop for the next 2 weeks, so starting on Saturday, March 20th, when I am posting this video, going through Saturday, April 3rd, all of these books will be an additional 15% off. Now, on Depop, I can't actually label these ones, the new books, specifically as 15% off, because they actually have to be on there for like 10 days before I can do that, but they will be adjusted accordingly to the price that I think they're worth, sort of worth, for Depop stuff. However, all of the books that I currently have on Depop that have been there since the last unhaul, I will actually be marking those an additional 25% off. Those should be showing up as on sale because they've been on there for at least 10 days. But like I said, I have 57 books here to show you. I think we're gonna start, because I sort of have them in categories, at the books I have not read before, because there's only a few of those, and then we will move into the books I definitely have read and I just don't see myself keeping. So the first one I have here is Invasive by Chuck Wendig. I have only read one other series by Chuck Wendig before, which is the Miriam Black series, and I really do enjoy that, so that's why I ended up picking up this one a few years ago. However, this is apparently the second book in a series, and I don't own the first. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, and because of that, I don't see myself getting to this anytime soon. So I'm going to be getting rid of it now. If I do eventually pick up the series, great, I will figure out a way to get that back then. Next, I have All These Things I've Done by Gabrielle Zevin. I have read other Gabrielle Zevin books in the past, and some of them I have really enjoyed. However, I reread Memoirs of a Teenage Amnesiac 2 years ago, I believe it was, and it just didn't hold up for me. This is, I believe, some sort of YA dystopian. It was published in 2011, and it's just not something that's holding my attention anymore, so I don't think I'm ever going to get to it. Next, we have Avalon by Mindy Arnett. This is a book that I actually was going to read sometime last year, and it just really did not hold my attention. I don't really care for the premise anymore, and I don't think I'm ever going to read it. This is some sort of YA sci-fi, but it focuses more on like a criminal crime element, and I just don't think I'm going to get to it. The next set of books I have here are books where I read the first book in the series, but I don't think I'm ever going to continue. So the first one I have here is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I not only have Red Queen, which I did read and give like 4 stars when this book first came out. Can we even see that cover? It's like so shiny. When it first came out, I don't think I'm actually going to ever finish this series though. I don't have any want to reread this first book because it's been so long since I did read it to continue. But not only do I have this first book, I also have the second, Glass Sword, and the third, King's Cage. I'm really bad about buying series before I like decide I want to continue, or sometimes before I read the first book. However, for this one, I did read the first book when it like first came out, really enjoyed it, bought the second one, but decided I needed to reread the first, never reread the first, bought the third one, but I think there's 4 books and short stories in this series, and I just don't feel the need to pick them up. This is one you guys could probably sway me on, but overall, no. And then also The Lost Code by Kevin Emerson. This is the first book in the Atlanteans series. This, again, I read forever ago, it feels like. I really did enjoy the first book, gave it like 4 stars, and because of that, picked up the second book, The Dark Shore, but never read it. And again, I feel like I would need to reread the first one before I read the second one. This one has something to do with a dystopian society, and I believe it is also fantasy based, but again, I haven't read it in a while and I forgot what it's about. I don't think I'm going to pick these up again. Moving into books that I have read. So everything else that I have to talk about are books that I have read before. The first one I have here is Nevernight by J. Kristoff. Before everybody gets up in arms about this is a duplicate copy. This is actually, I believe, the original UK cover. I don't think it's a first edition, but I could be wrong. I tried to double check and I can't quite tell on this, but it is the original UK cover that I bought back when this first came out. It is gorgeous, and it's very hard to get a hold of, so just be aware of that. But I owned this one, pre-ordered Dark Dawn when that came out, but I never had God's Grave. But when Illumicrate did their like dual book part last year of Nevernight and God's Grave, I did actually order that and ended up with, you know, 2 copies of Nevernight. One is the signed Illumicrate edition, which I will be keeping, and the other one is this. I do not need 2 copies of Nevernight on my shelves, so that is why I'm going to be getting rid of this one. Then I also have the 12, The Father. This is by Patrick Trahey. This is a like indie published graphic novel. I think it's the first or prequel to a series. I read this last year, just really did not enjoy it. It was not for me, and so because of that I am getting rid of it. I do believe this is signed though from Patrick Trahey, and I'm sure people love this. It is very dystopian, old worldy, like they feel like they're living on like a farm, western sort of thing, but it does have the dystopian elements. And again, like I said, it was just not for me. Then I have the entire 10-volume series of Dreamin Sun by Ichiko Takano. This is a series that I started reading a few years ago. Really enjoyed the first few volumes in this series. However, I did decide to read the entire series last June, I think it was, and it just got a little bit worse and worse from there for me. I think the first 4 volumes were really good and it just sort of died off. The main reason, this could be slight spoilers for this book, the main reason is there is a romance in here that is an age gap between an adult and a teenager, and that is just not something that I enjoy, and so that is why I'm getting rid of these, even though the art style is gorgeous and I have loved other books from Ichiko Takano in the past. Another manga, we have number 6 volume 1 and 2 by Atsuko Asano. This again is just one that I feel like is not quite for me. I read these last year and I was just really needing more. This is a dystopian manga, and I believe there is a character who ends up getting some sort of powers as well, but again, I've only read the first 2 volumes, but there is a lot to be desired for me personally with explanation and character development, so I will not be continuing in the series. And then the last manga that I have here is That Blue Sky Feeling, Volume 1, 2, and 3. This is the entire series by Okura. So this is a very short manga series. This is another one that I think I rated all 3 books 4 stars. So it's not necessarily bad. However, I will not be rereading them again. And this one also does have that trope that I don't really enjoy of a relationship. For this one, it's in the past. It's not a current relationship, but a relationship between an adult and a teenager. And again, it's just not something that I enjoy. And because of that, that's why I never rated these higher. They were a 4-star at the most, and I just won't ever be reading them again. Moving into ones that I consider more non-fiction based, we have Selp-Helf and My Diary by Miranda Sings. I absolutely love Colleen Ballinger. I watch her all the time, and while I enjoy Miranda, especially like her shows where she does Miranda and Colleen at the same time, I've read these. I'm not going to get anything out of them again, and so I think I just need to pass these on to people that definitely want to read these and keep these. They're fun, they're very humorous, but I'm never going to read them again. The next one we have here is Binge by Tyler Oakley. I have not been keeping up with Tyler Oakley's YouTube channel anymore. This is one that, like, when this book came out, I absolutely loved watching him, and this is not to say that I don't like him anymore, it's just not necessarily the content that I enjoy watching anymore. This one also is signed because I did go with a friend to a book signing, but again, I read this. It is like a memoir from whenever this was published, from 2015, so it's not current, but I'm sure, again, there are going to be people that would like to read this and I just don't need it anymore. I'm not going to reread it. Then I have I Am America and So Can You by Stephen Colbert. This one came out in 2008, and that is when I bought it. I was a senior in high school, and we, as part of one of my classes, AP US Government, we actually watched a lot of the Colbert Report in class. It was one of those things that we did because of all the commentary surrounding the 2008 election. So at that time I definitely did pick this up, and I do remember enjoying it, but again, it's sort of out of date. It is a humorous take on politics and all that kind of stuff, but it's not something I'm ever going to read again, and I don't fully know why I still have it except for memories. And then the last nonfiction I have here is The Hidden Power of Fucking Up by the Try Guys. This is actually a group that I still watch on YouTube. I absolutely love their videos, but this is more of a almost like a self-help book. They definitely talk about their lives, but they talk about trying and trying to be better and keep trying, and I did really enjoy this, but again, I don't think I'm ever going to read it again, and I'm sure there's somebody out there who would absolutely love this. Now we're going to move into the middle grade books. First, I have Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. Again, I'm sure people are going to just hate me for this, but I did not love this book. I gave it 3 stars. The writing style was definitely not for me. It didn't give me enough of what I wanted, and because of that, I'm not going to continue on in this series. And so, yeah, this cover is gorgeous, part of the reason I bought it. So I'm sure, again, somebody is absolutely gonna love this, but I do not need it on my shelves. Then I also have Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. Again, this cover is gorgeous, but I'm very hit or miss with classics, and this is definitely one that I remember not really loving, but I've been keeping it on my shelves for the aesthetics. I just absolutely love this chalk cover series, but I'm probably never going to read this again, so yeah. The next 2 I have here are from a series, and these are the 2 books that I will not actually be selling. I will be passing them on to my younger sister, who is currently 10 years old. She is 20 years younger than me. And we have Twice Upon a Time. We have Rapunzel, the one with all the hair, and Sleeping Beauty, the one who took a really long nap. These are both by Wendy Mass. They're very short middle grades, and I definitely read these when I was too old for the age level they were intended for, but I really enjoyed them. Basically, these books have 2 points of view about the princess who they are based on and the prince, and it's sort of a humorous, interesting take on what the actual fairy tales are about. I remember loving these. I've definitely read them multiple times. One of the reasons I'm getting rid of these is that she's getting into the age range where she can definitely read them, and my mom is always asking if I'm getting rid of books that I know she might enjoy, I should pass them along, which I totally agree with. But also, I believe this is a longer series than just these 2 books, but the covers change after these 2 books. The thing is, these aren't the best covers ever, but I really did enjoy what these covers were, and then when they made the new covers, I never continued on with the series because I was a little disappointed that we did end up with new covers. The next one I have here is Artemis Fowl, the graphic novel. Obviously, Artemis Fowl is by Owen Colfer, and if you've been on my channel for any time recently, I love Artemis Fowl so much. However, this graphic novel is not my favorite. The art style is definitely not really my thing, but also I personally like the novels better, and I only own the first graphic novel. I'm pretty sure they did most of the books in this graphic novel format. However, I'm also pretty sure they ended up doing a second graphic novel with a different art style. I could be wrong, but I don't see myself ever rereading the graphic novel, whereas I have definitely reread the books, and I will definitely continue to reread the books. So this is not one that I necessarily want to keep because I know I'm not going to be purchasing the rest of the series in graphic novel form, and I probably will never reread this again. Next, we're going to make this pretty quick. I have Harry Potter here. This is the UK edition, I believe, of the paperback books. They are gorgeous. However, I do not need a second set of Harry Potter books. I do not support J.K. Rowling or anything that she is currently standing for, especially in regards to trans rights and all that kind of stuff. I do not want to support her on my channel, so I will be getting rid of them. And then finally, we are moving into the biggest stack that I have here, and this is going to be my YA. So the first one I have here is Afterworlds by Scott Westerfeld. This is a book that I don't fully remember my exact thoughts on it, but we did have basically two points of view in here. We have one character who is a writer trying to sell her book and publish her book, and then the other point of view is her book. I did like this, which is why I have kept it so long on my shelves. However, I do also remember feeling like I wanted more of like the story that was being written in here, because we definitely jump between chapters, and so I don't know how I would feel about it if I was going to reread it now, and I know I'm not going to reread it now. So that's part of the reason I'm getting rid of this. The other reason I'm getting rid of Afterworlds is I've also decided to get rid of the Uglies series. Now, this is a series that I have had for forever. Oh my gosh, when was this first book published? In 2005. So yes, I've actually had this book since 2005, I'm pretty sure. I got it in high school around that age, and I definitely remember loving this first book. This is like the OG dystopian, but I also remember it getting worse and worse with each book we got into, and I've reread them since high school, although it has been some years, and I felt the same way. I absolutely loved the first one. I think I would have given this like 4.5 or 5 stars, but then I remember it getting worse and worse, and by the end of the third book, I hated it. And I've always hated it. So I don't know why I still have them on my shelves. I have been intrigued by the like sequel series to the Uglies. However, I don't know if I want to own these ones, and if I do decide someday to actually repurchase these for some reason, I do want the newer, prettier covers and not these ones. The next one we have here is The Past and Other Things That Should Stay Buried by Sean David Hutchinson. This one I read at the beginning of last year, and I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. I can't fully remember, but it is not my favorite Sean David Hutchinson, and I don't see myself ever rereading it. It is definitely one that is to do more with like friendship stuff, and while I do think some stuff was done really well, I just don't see myself rereading it. Then I have Spud by John Vanderroot. This is one that I've had since high school, I believe, and it is definitely a coming-of-age story about a teenage boy, and it's just one of those ones that I don't see myself rereading. I do believe there's a sequel. I don't think I'm ever going to get to it. This is something that is called Spud is South Africa's Catcher in the Rye, and I do feel like it has those similar vibes, but maybe in an easier, accessible format. But yeah, I'm never going to reread this, although I've held on to it for quite a while because I do remember loving it. Then I have Elsewhere by Gabrielle Zevin. So this is another Gabrielle Zevin book that I am deciding to get rid of, mostly because I do remember really enjoying this one. This is a like sort of fantasy-ish take on the afterlife. Fantasy might be weird. I don't actually know. It's a take on the afterlife, let's say, but I did not enjoy my reread of Memoirs of a Teenage Amnesiac, and I just don't think I'm ever going to reread this, so yeah. The next two books I have here are by the same author. We have Falling Into Place by Amy Zhong, and This Is Where the World Ends by Amy Zhong. This one I read last year, did not enjoy it. It was one of my worst books of 2020, and so that is why I'm getting rid of this. This one, I actually do remember reading years before this one, because it took me a while to actually get to this one, and I did give this one 5 stars. However, because of how disappointing this one was, and how long ago this one was, I can't fully say why I loved one more than the other, because I had issues with the problematic elements in here. But I don't think I ever want to reread it to see. But keep in mind, I loved this one, hated this one. Then I also have Zero Repeat Forever by G.S. Prendergast. This is another one that I read in 2020. I think I gave it 3 stars. It had some elements that were intriguing, other elements that I just did not enjoy whatsoever, and I believe this is a duology. I just won't be continuing with the series, but it is a like sci-fi alien invasion almost type of story with some romance elements. So some people might like this. I just had some issues. I then also have Jane Unlimited by Kristen Kishore. This is a bright and shiny cover. This one I gave 3.5 stars last year. This, I don't even know if I can actually tell you what it's about. It is so freaking weird, but basically it follows our main character of Jane, who then has like 5 different branching paths that she could go down, and it gives us an example into each one. Some of it is contemporary, some of it is fantasy, some of it is sci-fi. It is very weird, and I just don't think I'm ever going to read it again, which is why I'm getting rid of it. Then I also have Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. This one I did give 3.5 stars last year. It feels very much like Girl Interrupted to me. It definitely deals with our character coming out of a rehab facility, and I felt like this one just didn't fully hit the like top tier for me. I just won't read it again. The beginning and end were amazing. The middle was a little bit too day-to-day life for me, but I do have a friend who absolutely loves this book, so obviously some people do love this, and it is signed. Even though I bought it online, didn't know it was signed, it is signed. The next one I have here is The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. I read this one again last year. I think I gave it 3 stars. It was a little bit too long for me for a YA contemporary, and because of that, I just didn't feel like it lived up to as much hype. It was my first Morgan Matson, so maybe I need to try a different one, but I'm sure there are other people that would love to read this, and I just know I'm never going to read it again. Then I also have Freaks, Alive on the Inside by Annette Curtis Klaus. This is one that I remember reading, I think, in my early 20s, so it's been almost 10 years since I've read it. I don't think I'm going to reread it again. I don't know how well done the actual representation is because it is centering around a freak show, and I know some of that is problematic. But yes, I do remember liking it when I read it. I don't know how well done it actually is anymore. And then finally, we have The Fixes by Owen Matthews. This is a book I read a couple years ago, gave it I think 4 out of 5 stars. It is a contemporary. I do believe we have LGBTQ characters as well, but I don't remember a single thing that happened. I believe I gave it 4 stars, but I don't remember the characters' names. I don't remember the plot. I don't remember anything. I'm never going to reread it again. So it's not sticking in my mind whatsoever, and because of that, I feel like it just needs to move on to a new home. And that was all 57 books. Like I said before, I am going to be selling these on Depop, except for the couple that I mentioned earlier. I will leave the link down below. All of these books that we talked about today will be 15% off for the first 2 weeks, whereas everything else in the shop will be 25% off for those 2 weeks. So definitely jump on down there if you want any of these. I only do shipping in the United States, and it is through media mail, just keep that in mind. But otherwise, if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I do have videos up Mondays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays, so I will see you then. Bye!